What's up everybody, I'm Sega Lord X, and in this episode we are going to be taking a look at the Panzer Dragoon games on the Sega Saturn. Now the first game would come out in early 1995 and absolutely blow me away. I fell in love with the series instantly and played all three of these games as soon as they hit the market. I loved them back then and I still love them now. Few areas of this game have aged relatively poorly. Graphically, of course, being a 32-bit generation game, they don't look nearly as good as they did back then. But they still play great, and they still sound great. And the artistic style has to be admired. We're gonna take a look at Panzer Dragoon, Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei, and the expensive as hell Panzer Dragoon Saga. Let's take a look. In early 1995, I had my Japanese Sega Saturn for a few months already. I had played the hell out of Virtua Fighter and a few other games, but was really in need of a new game. I had, after all, spent a ton of money importing the Saturn, and I needed my next fix to show off the Sega powerhouse. I decided to give Panzer Dragoon a shot after liking what I had seen and read in various publications of the time. And good God, was I glad that I had. I rolled into this game with next to no idea what to expect. I knew it was a game that had a dragon in it, and you shot up things, but that was it. But that description does nothing to convey just how incredible of an experience this title actually was. The first thing that assaulted your senses was the unparalleled soundtrack that starts the second the title screen intro begins. It was epic in every single way. You just knew Sega had put some effort into this one, and I eagerly pressed start to get to this adventure. What followed was more incredible music, accompanied by one of the finest intros in a game I'd ever seen. The story opens up with the main character hunting in a canyon with compadres when he is beset upon by two dragons locked in combat. When one of the dragon riders is mortally wounded in battle, he passes on his mission to you. As the dragon rider's wound overtakes him and his dragon lets out a scream of sorrow, the weight of what you are about to face takes hold. The blue dragon lowers its head so you may take his old rider's place, and the Panzer Dragoon saga truly begins. Taking place over the course of 6 main levels, you'll ride your dragon along a predetermined path through oceans, deserts, caves, canyons, forests, and cities on your mission to fell the Black Dragon. You have full control over the camera to shoot forward, backwards, left and right. Enemies will do their best to flank your blind spots, so you'll need to become handy with switching your views. Not to mention fast, as the game can get quite hard until you learn where the enemies are going to attack you from. By the end of this adventure, you'll be a dragon-riding killing machine, in what was no question one of the best series to come out of that generation. Time has impacted the visuals of this one, and she's a little rough around the edges, especially its lowest frame rate. Make no mistake, however, the tried and true on-rail shooting action and still nearly timeless musical score make this game as playable now as it was then. One of the Saturn's truly great experiences, and one of the 32-bit generation's finest shooters. This one is cheap in Japan, and I highly recommend picking it up there. It is an absolute must-own for the system. In 1996, Team Andromeda would come screaming back onto the Saturn with Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei. Instead of simply rehashing what they had done before, they would take what they had learned in the first game and expand and improve nearly every single area in the sequel. They would completely rebuild the graphics engine, optimizing their own engine for the game, greatly increasing the amount of detail and frame rate over the original. They would also add new gameplay hooks like branching paths that led to different areas of each map, as well as a new evolution system that allowed your dragon to morph and change based upon how you played the game. This added considerable depth to an already established formula, taking a simple rail shooter and adding even more replay value. Returning would also be another top-notch soundtrack that never once faltered in its emotional impact on the game. This time, you start out by finding a baby dragon in a village that kills them on sight. You decide to hide and raise the little guy, until one day your village is attacked and you must flee. Once again, some asshole needs to be killed, and you embark on a mission to rain fire and death from your trusty dragon. You'll play through a vastly expanded game with more levels and deeper boss battles. Everything about Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei has been improved, making it yet another must-buy for the system. You'll again find the Japanese version of the game to be very affordable, and I again advise you to pick it up there. In all my years playing video games, one absolute truth has remained immutable. A game with strong artistic presence and tight gameplay will invariably retain timeless appeal. Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei is the epitome of that truth. Coming late in the Saturn's life cycle, Team Andromeda would change the Panzer Dragoon formula entirely for the third and final game on the Saturn hardware, Panzer Dragoon Saga. Here, the on-rail shooter that had been at the core of the previous games was heavily changed into a fully 3D explorable world with heavy RPG elements. Battles would consist of turn-based attacks mixed with real-time positioning that would affect the outcome of how much damage the receiving party would take. This was a great evolution of the typical RPG formula that had been dominating the genre for years, as you needed to keep moving to get into the best position to attack, as well as get out of vulnerable positions that could mean receiving heavy damage for yourself. Exploration consisted of on-foot segments, as well as areas that could be covered on your dragon. Unlike previous Panzers, these could be explored forward and backwards at your leisure, although the areas were streamlined to guide you to your destination. You begin the game as Edge, a young soldier guarding a dig site that finds a girl buried in rock. Your camp is attacked by the traitorous Kramen. The girl is taken, and your companions are killed. You are left for dead when a mysterious light awakens you, and it wouldn't be a Panzer game if a dragon didn't show up to help you kick everyone's ass for pissing you off. Panzer Dragoon Saga would be a bright shining light of goodness at a time of utter despair in the life of the Sega Saturn. It was one of the machine's final games released in the West, and few copies were made to be released at retail. This has led to the game becoming incredibly expensive, and collectors have hoarded the game, leading to extreme scarcity and demand. It's one of the most expensive Saturn games out there, and since the story is so important in this one, simply importing the far cheaper Japanese version isn't an easy solution. The Japanese game is playable, but you won't understand much of anything going on, taking away from the experience heavily. The game is aged rougher than its counterparts as well, as RPG games have evolved into much faster playing affair these days. Panzer Dragoon Saga's random battles weigh heavily on you now, making the game a burden to play in many areas. You'll be attacked constantly, often facing the same enemies countless times in battles that take far longer than in games like Final Fantasy. The game graphically has lost much of the flair the previous games had as well, as the 3D environment has far less going on in it than the on-rail levels of the first two. Panzer Dragoon Saga is still a good game, and a game worth playing if you've never experienced it. Just go into it with realistic expectations and an understanding you're going to pay top dollar for it. For most, I'd advise firing it up on an emulator and playing the first hour or so to see if you think it's for you. If you have the ability to play burned games on your machine, there are also reproductions out there that aren't half bad. The series would receive only one more main entry, an original Xbox exclusive called Panzer Dragoon Orta, released in 2002. That game would end this legendary series on a high note, returning to its on-rail shooting origins, complete with awesome graphics and sound. Be sure to give that one a look too. Now, when it comes to Panzer Dragoon Saga, there is no one-for-one trade between the Japanese and the English versions of this game. This game was cinema and speech heavy. Lots and lots of story in this one. If you are unable to follow the story because you buy the Japanese version, it's going to make it tough to truly experience that game in any kind of meaningful way. So, there are reproductions out there. If you have the ability to play backups, I advise you to hit up a place like Etsy and get you a reproduction of the game. Now, you can buy the Japanese version, and it is playable just to give you an idea of what the gameplay is like. The Japanese version is fairly easy to follow in terms of gameplay, so that will let you know, do you like it, do you not, is this something you would like to pursue? The Japanese version on eBay will run you between $20 and $40, a damn sight cheaper than the English versions. But definitely give these games a try. If you've never played them, the soundtrack alone is worth picking these games up for. They were special then, they are special now, and they remain some of my Saturn's fondest memories from that era. These games are must plays and must buys if you are a Sega Saturn fan. I am Sega Lord X. I really appreciate you guys watching. I just broke 500 subscribers. I'm totally stoked. Never thought that would happen, and you guys made it happen. I'm really grateful to each and every one of you, and I will catch you next time.